the forgotten birth of controlled flight. For most of modern history, human flight has been framed as a steady march of progress, one invention leading logically to the next, culminating in powered airplanes and jet travel. Yet this narrative overlooks a long and deeply strange prelude, the era of early aeronautics, when hot air balloons and experimental airships hovered on the boundary between science and pseudoscience. In the 18th century, balloons were marvels, not machines. They floated where the wind allowed, passengers surrendering control entirely to atmospheric currents. Directional navigation, propulsion, and sustained control were problems considered nearly insurmountable. Early balloonists did not lack imagination, but they lacked energy sources. Fire heated air, but heat could not steer. Wind carried vessels, but wind could not be commanded. As a result, balloons became novelties, spectacles at fairs, daring experiments by adventurous scientists, but never a reliable means of transportation. The idea that a craft could move freely through the air, change direction at will, stop mid-flight, or travel at extreme speeds belonged more to speculative fiction than applied engineering. This is where airships enter the story. Unlike balloons, airships implied control. They suggested propulsion, steering, and intention. By the early 20th century, rigid airships like the German Hindenburg would briefly dominate the skies, using massive metal frames and gas envelopes to create floating leviathans capable of long-distance travel. But those famous machines came decades later. What is rarely discussed is what came before them: ideas, sightings, and reports that do not fit comfortably within the accepted timeline of technological development. To understand this anomaly, we must step backward rather than forward, past the celebrated airships of the 1900s and into the closing years of the 19th century. Specifically, we must examine the years 1896 and 1897, a period marked by an unprecedented wave of airship sightings across the United States. These sightings described a craft unlike anything officially known at the time: elongated, metallic, silent, brilliantly illuminated, capable of hovering, accelerating instantly, and traveling at speeds far exceeding those of any documented aircraft of the era. First, these reports were ridiculed. Newspapers mocked them, scientists dismissed them, and the public laughed them off as hoaxes or misidentifications. Yet the laughter faded as reports multiplied. The same craft, described in nearly identical terms, was seen across vast distances, moving in a discernible geographic pattern from the West Coast to the Midwest. Witnesses included farmers, doctors, lawyers, judges, lawmen, and even government officials. Many signed sworn affidavits. Some claimed direct interaction with the craft's occupants. This was not a single event. It was not confined to one town or one night. It was a nationwide phenomenon involving thousands of witnesses over many months. And then, just as abruptly as it began, it stopped. To this day, no consensus explanation exists. This investigation does not begin with aliens, ancient civilizations, or lost technologies. It begins with a question far more unsettling: what happens when historical records describe technology that should not exist yet, and do so repeatedly, independently, and credibly? The airship mystery of 1896 to 1897 forces us to confront the possibility that the official story of human flight is incomplete. The first sightings in California, 1896. The first documented sightings of the mysterious airship occurred in late 1896 in California, particularly in the San Francisco Valley. These initial reports described a large, elongated object moving through the night sky, often at dusk or after dark. The craft was illuminated, sometimes with powerful searchlights, and appeared capable of traveling against the wind, an immediately suspicious detail given the limitations of known balloon technology at the time. Witnesses consistently described the object as cigar-shaped or cylindrical, sometimes comparing it to a giant torpedo or elongated balloon. Unlike balloons, however, this object did not drift aimlessly. It maneuvered deliberately. It stopped mid-air. It changed direction abruptly. And according to multiple reports, it did so almost silently. At first, local newspapers treated the sightings as curiosities. Some suggested the object was a misidentified planet, comet, or experimental balloon. Others implied mass hysteria. But skepticism became harder to maintain as sightings continued night after night, involving independent witnesses across different towns who had no contact with one another. Then came the first truly destabilizing element of the story: a man who claimed legal knowledge of the craft itself. George D. Collins and the inventor in hiding in the same week as the earliest California sightings. An attorney named George D. Collins stepped forward. Collins claimed he represented the inventor of the airship. According to him, this inventor was a wealthy man who had studied flying machines for over 15 years and had deliberately relocated to California to work in secrecy. In a November 23, 1896 interview with the Sioux City Journal, Collins made several remarkable claims. He stated that the airship was real metallic, approximately 150 feet long, and capable of carrying 15 people. Most notably, he claimed it had no visible motor power, no steam engine, no obvious propulsion system. Collins further asserted that the inventor had spent over $100,000 on development, a massive sum at the time, had not yet secured a patent due to fear of theft, and had deliberately avoided public demonstration. This alone would be suspicious, but what followed was more troubling. Collins stated he had personally seen the machine. Skeptics immediately questioned the story. If such a revolutionary invention existed, why hide it? Why avoid patents? Why operate only at night? Yet Collins was not alone. Other lawyers and prominent figures soon emerged, each claiming some connection to the mysterious inventor, though none could produce proof. The timing was uncanny. The sightings increased dramatically just as these legal claims appeared in print. Whether coincidence or coordination, the effect was undeniable. The airship transitioned from rumor to national conversation. Impossible performance characteristics as sightings multiplied. The reported performance of the airship grew increasingly difficult to reconcile with known technology. According to numerous accounts, the craft could reach speeds between 100 and 250 miles per hour, decades before aircraft capable of even a fraction of that speed existed. Equally puzzling was the absence of noise. Steam engines were loud. Internal combustion engines were loud. Even early propellers generated significant sound. Yet witnesses repeatedly emphasized the craft's near silence, even during rapid acceleration. The airship reportedly produced no exhaust, smoke, sparks, or residue. When it departed, it simply wasn't there anymore. This combination, high speed, silent operation, extreme maneuverability, and lack of visible propulsion, poses a serious problem for conventional explanations. No known airship design of the era, experimental or otherwise, could achieve these feats. And then there were the lights. Many witnesses described bright white beams, colored navigation lights, and searchlights capable of illuminating the ground below. Electrical lighting existed in 1896, but compact, airborne electrical systems powerful enough to operate such lights were still highly experimental. The craft did not behave like a balloon. It did not behave like an airplane. It did not behave like any documented machine of the time. The Midwest wave of 1897. Between January and March of 1897, the sightings abruptly vanished from California. Then just as suddenly they reappeared, this time in the Midwest. Reports flooded newspapers from Texas, Iowa, Illinois, Nebraska, Michigan, Missouri, and beyond. Researchers Don Hanlon and John Keel later analyzed these accounts, identifying 126 highly credible reports from April 1897 alone, spanning 14 states. Some sightings involved thousands of witnesses, including mass observations over cities like Chicago and Omaha. On April 17, 1897, sightings were reported in 7 towns across Michigan in a single night, while 12 towns in Texas observed the same craft simultaneously, despite being hundreds of miles apart. This was not random. The sightings followed no known weather patterns. They did, however, follow geography. April Fool's Day and the Kansas City event. One of the most famous events occurred on April 1, 1897, April Fool's Day, when an estimated 10,000 people reportedly witnessed the airship hovering over Kansas City at dusk, remaining visible for hours. Skeptics argue the date itself implies a hoax. Yet others see symbolic intent. April Fool's Day has ancient roots tied to deception, revelation, and ritual misdirection. If one wished to reveal something extraordinary while ensuring plausible deniability, this date would be ideal. The craft did not crash. It did not land publicly. It simply appeared, hovered, and left. Landings and encounters. Some of the most controversial reports involve alleged landings and human interaction. In Stockton, California, Colonel H.G. Shaw claimed to encounter a landed craft and observed 3 slender beings moving around it, emitting strange sounds. In Arkansas, lawmen John Sumner and John McLemore signed affidavits describing an encounter with a bearded man, a young man, and a woman traveling in an airship. They described refilling water supplies and detailed the craft's shape, size, and silence. These accounts stretch credibility, but they were sworn statements published in newspapers and never formally retracted. The Dallas encounter and polar civilization claims perhaps the most extraordinary account came from Dallas, Texas, where Judge Love claimed to speak with 5 airship occupants. According to his account, they described a hidden land beyond the North Pole, inhabited by descendants of the lost tribes of Israel and explorers from Sir Hugh Willoughby's 1553 expedition. This story borders on myth, yet it echoes later 20th-century polar exploration controversies, including Admiral Byrd's expeditions and Operation High Jump. Coincidence or continuity? Forgotten history and suppressed memory. By late 1897, the sightings stopped. Public interest evaporated. When similar airship waves occurred in 1909 to 1912, newspapers failed to mention the 1896 to 1897 events entirely. Jeremy Clark noted this historical amnesia, comparing it to selective erasure. Whether intentional suppression or cultural dismissal, the result was the same. The airship panic vanished from mainstream memory. Hoax, lost civilization, or something else? Was it a hoax? Possibly, but one requiring national coordination, technological illusion, and hundreds of credible participants risking reputation. Was it experimental human technology? No documented prototypes support that claim. Was it misidentified natural phenomena? The structured movement, lights, and landings argue otherwise. Or was it evidence of lost knowledge, pre-reset civilization, or non-human intelligence? The airship of 1896 to 1897 remains an unresolved anomaly, a crack in the official narrative of technological progress, and sometimes history's most important clues are the ones we're taught to forget.